Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello and welcome back to episode number 25, and today we are live in the parent group, the Up My Hockey parent group. It's a private group where I talk about mindset skills required to become our best as athletes, and the intangibles of the character intangibles required to get to where you want to go. And I also have interviews like this with either ex-pros that get released onto the podcast or other people involved within the game of hockey in some capacity, whether it be a scout or whether it be a visualization expert or whether it be sports psychologists, nutritionists, so to provide access to parents and the athletes of those parents to give them an advantage, to become the best athletes that they can be. I really enjoy the group. The group's growing. So if you want to have a front row seat for some of these interviews, by all means, step into the Up My Hockey parent group over on Facebook, especially if you have an athlete. That's really who it's designed for. We get into a lot of cool stuff there, a lot of cool master classes. And like I said, you also have a chance to listen to somebody like Nik Antropov and also ask questions to Nik yourself. So like I said, Nik is the guest today. Nik joined us from Muskoka, the Lakes Cabin region there up in Ontario. It does get a little bit draggy at a certain times. It's nothing too bad, but the internet out there wasn't amazing. But Nik was gracious enough to spend over an hour and a half of his time with us, and we get into some super cool, interesting facts about Nik and about his journey as a hockey player. And gosh, it's hard enough to make it to the NHL, let alone make it to the NHL from Kazakhstan, a place where he didn't even know what the NHL was, he says, until he was like 12 or 13 years old. To become a 10th overall draft pick to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that story about the draft and the story about how he became to his first NHL camp, and just how little he really understood about what he was getting into, not being able to speak English, not knowing anybody within the organization. I mean, I can relate to him on some levels, but I understood how hard it was as a North American kid, and now here he's coming over and trying to fit into one of these original six franchises as a first round draft pick, and make the most of it. And he had to essentially grow up as a hockey player and as a human, as a man, grow up physically, grow up mentally, in front of the watchful, scornful eyes of how nasty Toronto Maple Leaf fans can be when they want to be. So things didn't go as well for him, which we talk about in his first few years with the team. I mean, he was 19 years old. He was 180 pounds, standing 6'4", playing a very physical game with the men, and he was getting injured. And he wasn't producing the way he wanted to, and the fans were letting him know that. So he had to grow up. He had to grow up into that frame. He had to grow up into the role, figure out how to play there, figure out how to find his confidence again. And he did that, though. He did mature with the Leafs. He ended up leaving that organization with an A on his jersey. And what a testament to him. And we cover all of that. So, Nik ended up playing 788 games in the NHL. He played with Toronto. He played with the Rangers. He played with Atlanta. And that Atlanta team moved to Winnipeg, where he scored the first ever goal with the Winnipeg Jets coming back. We talk about that. And now he's also a skills consultant with the Toronto Maple Leafs, primarily with the Toronto Marlies, working with the Russian-born players over there, helping them with the transition over to the North American game. So Nik has a ton to offer us. I love that. I love his story, and I love being able to talk about his story, and I love that you're able now to listen to his story. And there's a lot to take away from it. There's a lot to learn from Nik, and he was really gracious with his time and really vulnerable about what he went through there. So, without further ado, I bring you Mr. Nik Antropov. All right, so here we are, Up My Hockey, episode 25, I think it is now, and we have Nik Antropov on the show. Antro, thanks so much for joining today. Really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, you got me up a little early. We were joking about it already. So Nick's out at the cabin there, and well, where are you actually? Where is the cabin?
So it's about 2 hours, 15 minutes door to door from Toronto to Muskoka. So it's a area called Muskoka. So that's famous, here. Kind of for good cottages, and lakes and cabins and everything. Yeah. So it's about, I don't know, thousands and thousands of lakes. But that's where people come usually on the weekend. So I had a pleasure to live here since the pandemic starts. So since March, right. I haven't been in Toronto yet. So.
Oh, good for you. Guys are enjoying your time out there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I follow you on Instagram there, and some of those stories is pretty cool. Where you get to hang out there. But yeah, so Nick's out there in the East Coast, and well, not East Coast, but Eastern time zone, and with his schedule, he made me get up at 6 o'clock this morning. So that's all good. I got to get the cobwebs out of my eyes here to keep this one rolling.
I haven't had a coffee yet too, so I'm just waiting for my coffee to get brewed.
Oh, perfect. And we are live again in the Up My Hockey parent group, so this is super cool. So I didn't announce it in the group, but for anyone in the group who chooses, we already have a couple people looking in. By all means, Nick would be happy to take some questions. Nick with a 13-year NHL career, and now helping out the Maple Leafs and the Marlies in the skills consultant department. So I want to get into all that, Nick. But maybe we'll just start with where we actually met, which for me was pretty fun, and I know you've done it a ton of times. But the Leafs alumni had a trip out west, and usually you guys don't come out west because why would you? I mean, there's so many people out there in the East and so many projects and activities to be a part of there. But they came out west all the way to the island, and they needed a couple extra stragglers to pull along. So they grabbed me out of the.
You were pretty good.
Out of the woodwork. They wanted to lower the average age there a little bit too, I think.
Probably, yeah, because I'm the only one pulling that for now so far.
Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, like Rick Vai was there, and Dan Daou, and Ali Afraidy, and Gary Volk, and Brad May, and obviously Nick and Trevor Kidd. So there was a ton of guys there. I know I'm forgetting some guys. Yeah, Gary Lehman, and yeah.
It's a good group of guys.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun. That was really fun, and we were raising some money for some charities, and we played in 3 different spots, and had a chance to talk with some guys like yourself there, Nick, and I really enjoyed that. And one thing I found out about you is that we share the same birth date, so February 18th is a good day for you and I.
And idol still hockey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Mario Lemieux.
Lemieux.
Yeah. But no, I wanted to get into this show, Nick's a bit different than a lot of podcasts. I listened to one of the ones that you were on with the Hockey Illuminati, which was a pretty cool talk. I do like talking about hockey stories and stuff, but I really like talking about like the journey, and what a player's journey was like, and what he had to go through. Because I think it's an important part and stuff that people don't necessarily talk about a ton. And I think your story is like super compelling just because of, obviously where you came from, and not many people were coming out of Kazakhstan to the NHL. And the fact that you were so young when you made the trip over, the fact that you didn't know English, didn't know the culture. Like I wanted to start kind of back there. I mean, you growing up in Kazakhstan, if you don't mind, and like what that was like and how that maybe compares differently to what your own kids are experiencing now in North America.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a long story. We have a lot of time, right? I guess so.
Yeah, no,
like for me, I have no idea what was NHL until about age of 13, 14. So I had no clue what NHL is, what's happening there. So for my goal as a kid was to make my hometown pro team. That was my goal, and that would be my highlight of my career. You know what I mean? Which I did at the age of 16. Although I already knew a little bit of NHL at the time. So let's put it this way. So when I discovered what NHL is, so let's say I was 14, for example. So we had 30 minutes of NHL highlights once a week. So 10 best goals, 10 best saves, like a Don Cherry type of thing, the old school, and 10 best NHL coverage that we had. So obviously never dreamed to play in the NHL, and never even thought in my wildest, dreams like I would be playing for Toronto Maple Leafs, especially, right? So
Right.
I made my hometown team at the age of 16. Before that, actually, it was a funny story too, because in Kazakhstan in about 93, 92, so like when USSR break down on 15 different republics.
Okay.
So I ended up in Kazakhstan. It used to be USSR, right? Back
Yep.
Kazakhstan was kind of struggling with was keeping coaches and good players. So everybody started leaving for better, to Russia to play. And the friends that I played with, or my teammates, 3 of them left. I'm gonna say now, I don't care, but I was the best player, and my dad was so against for me to leave until I played at least 1 year for my pro hockey team. He was so against. I was so pissed at him. Like you have no idea at the age of 15, But he did the right thing. I'm really glad that he did that. I appreciated what he done. So he kept me, for another extra year and a half in Kazakhstan. So I played the full season for my pro hockey team, which called Torpedo. I played there, and then the next year I moved on. So obviously I got drafted with the Leafs, and next year I moved on to Dynamo Moscow.
Yeah, let's rewind there. So where did you want to go? Did you want to go to Russia and follow your other teammates there? And why did your dad not want you to do that?
Basically, I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why. He did the right thing. I don't know why. So he wants me. I guess he wants to see me. Like he didn't want to let me go. I guess just as a parent, your kid's living in it, and I guess that was his. But the main goal for him, he wants me to play that 1 year for the pro team on my hometown, right? So, and but I wanted to go to Russia because I got lots of asks, like a couple of coaches, and potentially play for Team Russia. Young guy, you don't think somebody asked me to go, like I'm gonna make it. No, whoever left from my team, or they didn't make anywhere. You know what I mean? So
right.
That's why I really, really appreciated what my dad did to me. Like he kept me there, and I played, and then turned out to be 13-year NHL veteran, I guess, at the end of the day.
No, that's super wild. And so you talked about the draft year, and I was when I was researching the episode, I saw that you played for Kazakhstan nationally there at the World Junior Tournament. So you played there prior to getting drafted, if I had my dates correct, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. So was that?
I would say that's where I got scouted. Like go ahead.
No, that's just what I was going to say. I was wondering because there can't be too many scouts running around the Kazakhstan pro leagues, I would assume, right? And that's a big stage.
One scout made it.
Yeah.
One scout made it to my hometown from Nashville. That was it. Back then, it was one flight from Moscow to my hometown, one flight a week. So if you come to my hometown to watch whatever, like you stuck for a whole week, you know what I mean? And there was nothing to do, literally. So I only saw one scout. I didn't even know what scout is up until, like I said, like 14, 15 years old. So I'm assuming I got scouted, in an international level because I played for U18, U20. I played 2 junior. Well, that's prior to the draft. So I played U18, and I think once U20 for 3 year older. So the guys that I played with, was 3 year older than me, 77 born.
Yeah.
So I made that team at 16 as well. So I guess that's where I got scouted. Yeah.
Right. What was life like in Kazakhstan at the time for you?
I didn't care. I love to play hockey. Like, I guess it was tough. Now I'm thinking back, like USSR breakdown. So it's Kazakhstan now, not Russia, It's been like when I was 13, 14. Yeah. So we were struggling as a family. Like my dad was working at the uranium factory, right? So he get up at 5 a.m. and be like 45-minute haul, like we didn't have a car, we didn't have anything. So he'd get up at 5 and came back home at 5, so that's like, and we were not struggling. I wouldn't say we're struggling, but we didn't have money, I can't even buy ice cream, you know what I mean? There was like no extra money for nothing. So we were kind of saving for everything. But, as a kid, you don't really think about it, right? Like you're just having fun. You go, I spent like 4 hours at the hockey rink. So I would practice with my with my team age group. Then I stayed on for another, and then I wait a couple hours, and then there was a younger kid, about 6 year younger than me. So I knew the coach. So he let me in all the time. So I was working on my hands. I didn't know I was working on my hands, when he tried to dig like 26-year-olds, you know what I mean? But that was a really good experience for me. So I just loved playing hockey. So nothing bothered me, right?
Right.
As a kid, like I said, you never think about what's happening in the world at the time.
No, exactly. And and especially when you have nothing to compare it to, because I assume that what you were surrounded by was similar to experience that you had, right? So that everyone's kind of doing the same thing. Hockey's an expensive sport though. Like, was that a priority that your parents put on it, like to make sure you guys had skates and equipment and could do your thing?
Well, back then, if you like in Russia, it was different situation in Canada, right? So here, parents pays for everything up until you make to the OHL, right? So then your kids getting like free skates, free sticks, blah blah. So back there in Russia, it changed actually the way it's in Canada right now. But back when I was a kid, so the hockey, it's not hockey school. It's let's put it this way. So the pro team. It take care of all the teams that below them. So it's farm team and junior team, and so the organization as a whole support every. So you get free equipment, except the skates actually. So, but sticks, they give you sticks, they give you gloves, they give you everything, right? Oh. So it's under whole like one bubble. Yeah. So it was. I mean, it's a Russian. I never see like a Jofa gloves or like Koho gloves back at the day, or Cooper, like until I was 15. And like it's all like Soviet, gloves and everything. So it was I was playing what's those skates called? I don't know. I've never remembered this word, but when in 72, 70, like up until 80s, they played in those skates. It's like leather skates, like not even before microns. What was it like that?
Oh gosh,
like they played in 72 series, like you know what I mean, like
those
old
plastic,
like leather skates.
Yeah. You had those ones.
There is no. So I played up until I was 15 years old. So I played in the skates like this. So one day, coach goes to, and I was a captain of my team, and the coach come up to my dad and said, "Listen, buddy, like okay, spend like it was a 40 rubles. So my dad used to make 120 rubles a month, and the skates cost 40 rubles. So we had to third of a budget, you know what I mean? So I remember that day like it was yesterday. So we went to the sports store and he bought me those skates. I was so happy. It's a Russian micron, so it's a plastic, and tug,
right.
It was cool.
Holy smokes, what an investment that is.
So that's
that's crazy.
I guess it paid out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So when you went to where was the World Junior Tournament the year that you went?
So I played one in Pool B. That was in Kiev. So the year before, and then in '98. So my draft year, I think I was already drafted. Yeah, I was already drafted. It was in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay. So you're already drafted.
78 born players.
So that
year
I
was already drafted. But the one, no, you know what? I don't even remember. You gotta look up. You have a computer in front of you? Because I played one in Kiev. That was Pool B for 77. For 70. Oh no, sorry. I was before my draft. I played in Hämeenlinna, Finland, World Junior. That's when we beat Canada actually 6-3, and we finished higher than. So we finished 7th. They finished 8th, I think. So that was the year before my draft. Yeah.
Right. That's crazy. So that was because I have that in 1998. That was the one where you had in 7 games you had 6 assists because that would have been your draft year.
That was Hämeenlinna, Finland. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also played U18 that year where it says you had 54 points in 5 games.
Disregard that. I know.
That's unbelievable.
Like 25 points in one game or something like that. Yeah, it was like. So the reason we went to play there, so Team Kazakhstan, like U18, used to play in Asia and Oceania back in the day. So we would play like China, South Korea, Japan. So that was like a mini tournament, but the cost of traveling and everything was huge, right?
Yeah.
So I guess our federation asked WIHF to move us to the European Championship, and that was, by the way, was the last European Championship ever. There is no after that.
Gotcha.
So, and we had to start from Pool D, so that's where all this starts. So we played against like Iceland,
right.
We played against Luxembourg. I don't know if you guys heard those. Spain, Netherlands. You know what I mean? So we have to start from the bottom and kind of go way up. But that was the last European Championship. And
gotcha. So Pool D, you were in there. That's crazy.
And
yeah. So what was that like then, playing in the, playing in Pool A like that and beating Canada? Like, was that I would assume that would have been a really big, epic experience for you guys, being at that tournament and playing those teams.
Absolutely, yeah. That was just for me, just to make the team Kazakhstan and represent my country, it was like unbelievable, huge. I don't care what level it was, you know what I mean? But so the only one thing I want to mention in that, so our team Kazakhstan, like, Team Canada, they got players from all over the Canada. So Team Kazakhstan, it's one dressing room team from my hometown. So there was only from my hometown, it's our team. So we combine like 2-3 age groups together. That was it. So we can't draw from like east or west or north. You know what I mean? So it's one dressing room team, basically, literally.
Wow. And one dressing room team from Kazakhstan beat Canada.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah, it was epic. So I don't know how. Our goalie was, I don't know what he ate. And but I think he stopped, 70 plus shots, and we, I guess 8 times we come out from our zone and we managed to score 6 goals. So, you know what?
Are you kidding? Is that a true fact? Like, you came out of your zone 8 times the entire game?
I'm just maybe like 10 or 12, Like, right. I would like to have a tape. Like, I've been asking for this tape, but I guess because we beat Canada, nobody's, really responding back to me. So, because I'd love to watch that game all over again. Like, just,
wow.
Like, and actually counted how many times we come out and what our possession like and shots difference. It was like, right. I don't know, maybe like 15 shots we had, maybe less. But
that's wild. Yeah, I mean, because it's cool to talk to you, somebody on the other side of that, because, being a Canadian guy and being a Canadian guy that played World Junior and won a gold medal and followed it, like that's, as you know now, living in Canada, it's a huge deal, right? Like, that team's a big deal, and there's a lot of people that follow it, and how well Canada does there is like a big thing to the national pride almost, right? And
nothing but gold. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And for that year, right, to be almost relegated and then to lose to Kazakhstan, like you say, I mean, it was like people were really wondering what's wrong with their program and what's going on and everything else. And I love having you here, being a part of that, that game that was just like a black mark for Canada, that whole series.
And then we tried to exchange jerseys after that, right? And they like just yelling. Well, back in the day, I didn't know what they were yelling, but they like yelling from through the door. They wouldn't open the door and F off and and then the next year we played in Winnipeg. So I was already drafted. It was 98, 99.
Yeah.
So we played World Juniors, was in Winnipeg, and as soon as the schedule came out, so I already knew a little bit because I've been in a rookie camp before, so I kind of know the little bit of a Canadian hockey kitchen, put it this way. And then I look up at the schedule and I see Canada, Kazakhstan. So we would play. And I told our guys, so I was already playing in Dynamo. So I came in maybe like 4 or 5 days prior to the World Championship.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, get ready, guys. Like, get ready. Your ass are like, they're going to kick our butts, and not just scoring wise, but you know what I mean? It was like the first period, I remember. So we lost. We ended up losing 12-2, right? So it was 4-0 after first period.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know, probably they threw like 30-35 hits on us in the first period. It was like the guys didn't, like some of our guys didn't want to play. You know what I mean? So it was crazy.
A little bit of payback, for the Canadian.
Payback, but it started. So, morning skates. So we were skating after Team Canada for the morning skates because game was at 7 o'clock because it's Team Canada, right? So we came in for the morning skates. I think they were at 9, we were at 10 or something like that. And we just, come up to the glass around behind the net on the corner there. And we stood and tried to watch and they started slap shotting pucks at us through the glass. That's when I knew, like, guys, you'll be ready. Like, keep your heads up and stuff because it's gonna be ugly.
So was that team that year the same thing? Like as far as like just one team?
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Kazakhstan?
Every team Kazakhstan, even up until now, like there is some guys playing in KHL, but back then, especially in the junior level,
Right.
it's all it's all like one dressing room team.
But they brought you though because you were one of the exceptions then in that scenario because I saw that you had the C and you were playing pro in Russia, but they brought you in for that tournament.
Well, what happened is because I got drafted by Toronto, right, and the year before I played in Dynamo Moscow already, so that was the year, right? So when it's any there is a pause always, like if there is any international tournaments for foreigners, let's say, like because I was Kazakh, right, playing in Russia, the rule is they must let you go, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they let me go, obviously, just for that tournament and represent my country and spend whatever 12 days and Winnipeg, or 14 days, play the tournament, and went back to play for Dynamo.
That was successful. Well, I mean, you were successful the year before with the 6 points. But you had 8 points in 6 games. I mean, playing for Kazakhstan, you must have, whatever, been doing well. And that must have been. How did that feel for you to be able to, compete and even excel at that level with all these other guys? Like, were you kind of measuring yourself out there? I assume, seeing how you felt.
No, for me, it was just a tournament, and I didn't know who was, like, now I'm looking back, there was like a Hossa, Gaborik, or all these names, like Cavalier, Legwand. Like back then I had no idea who, like Team Canada, Team US, you know what I mean? I didn't know any names. So for me it was, like I said, like I didn't even know what draft is, let's put it this way. So
right.
So for me, it was just a tournament. I'm excited to be there and contributed for my country. So that was main goal. That's it. The goal was to stay in the Pool A, which we did, which we accomplished. That was the gold for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about the draft because you mentioned that the draft. You didn't know much about it. You weren't at it from what I understand.
I was at the draft. Yeah.
Oh, you did. So okay, so you went.
I didn't go to combines. The combines, I didn't go, but the draft, I was at the draft. It was in Buffalo.
Awesome. So then, at what point did you know, like during that season, that you were being scouted and projected to be a top pick? And like, did you feel any of that pressure, or like how did that work for you?
Nothing. I knew nothing. So that's how it worked out perfectly for me. Because you imagine having this pressure, like. I guess my oldest son went through that, like playing in the OHL and just 2 years to get drafted, and there is so much pressure. It's unbelievable. I didn't know anything about it. Like it was day after day for me. So whatever. So my agent called me and said, "Hey, pack your suit. We're going to the draft." I'm like, "Okay, what's like?" Literally, that was the conversation. I'm like, "What's draft?" He's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No, like that's for the pick for the NHL." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I packed my stuff, flew to Toronto, and then we drove to Buffalo, and up until they called my name on stage, or up until the draft, Vinny Lecavalier was the first overall there, so I kind of started looking, because my agent told me you're probably gonna go at the draft already while we're sitting in the arena. So he told me you're probably gonna go first 3 rounds somewhere there, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever. Literally, it's just like I'm like, okay, whatever. So and then I was sitting there, and then Vinny went first, so I kind of started looking what if they call my name, what I have to do, right? I didn't even own the suit, so because you have to wear a suit and tie, right? Kind of like So my agent went and bought it for me a couple of days before. So it was like, you're looking back now, like, what the hell, you know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, then my name got called up. Like at least I knew it was like 9 guys before me went out on the stage, shake Gary Bettman's hand. So okay, take your jacket. So that's how. I got drafted, I guess.
Holy smokes, man. Antro, that's unbelievable. So, like, how did you find – I just wonder why you even had an agent. Like, what was your agent doing if you didn't know about the draft? And, like, how did that happen?
I don't know. Like, I mostly dealt with my Russian representative.
Yeah.
So he was from Moscow, so he kind of got me. So when I got drafted for Toronto, obviously I didn't even go to the to their main camp. I don't think they called me up for the main camp that year, right? So they kind of suggested me to go to the CHL to play for Brampton. I got drafted on an import draft by Brampton Battalion in the OHL. So they kind of want me to go that way to, you get used to North American lifestyle and hockey, but I already signed so I didn't hear anything from the Leafs after that, right? So like I signed a year contract in Dynamo already, like another year.
Yeah.
And Leafs were kind enough actually, so they lent me there for 1 year. So it's kind of like Austin Matthews situation when he went and play, instead of playing with the boys, like I was playing against the men all the time, like, mature men and stuff like that. So I spent a year there, played, turned out to be okay. Like, so, but the funny thing about the, who Stan Butler is, right? So he's a long-time Canadian junior coach, Stan Butler.
Okay.
If you Google him. So anyway, so he was coaching. He was still coaching up until last year for Brampton Battalion, or now the North Bay Battalion. So 20 or 30 years of coaching career. So anyway, so I didn't speak any English, obviously, right? So I have an interpreter with me. So we went out to meet Stan because he was trying to recruit me to play for Brampton.
Yeah.
And obviously, I know, hi, how are you? And that's it. That sit down or stand up. That's all I knew back then, right? So we went out, but I kind of can put two words together when I listen, so I understand more at the time. So he asked me, how would you like to come and play for us? And before he finished his sentence, I said right away, I'm like, no. Like before, and my interpreter like kicked me in the shin under the table, like, shut the hell up, let me put it nice way, So before so I understood that, how would you like to come and play for us? And I'm like, no. So I spent a year in Dynamo. So like I said, I dealt mostly with my not mostly, all the time I dealt with I didn't like, I was low maintenance guy. Like I didn't need anything, like I just happy to be playing hockey at the age of 18, and didn't think about it. Playing in Dynamo Moscow, one of the best teams in Russia, it was awesome. So
yeah. That is, I'm still thinking back to the draft. Because I remember my draft where, we got in there 2 days early, and you're interviewing with all these teams, and so you didn't have any of that. You just showed up almost like.
Yeah, so I showed up maybe a week before, or because I missed the combine, right? So nobody invited me to combine, or I guess it was too much. I don't know what happened. So I never been on a combine, which is a month before, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I missed the combine. So I came in a week or maybe 5 days before the draft, and I did 5 or 4 tests. So I did, like a physio test, right? So I did the test, VO2 and Wingates, all this 4 days in a row. 4 days in a row. I did St. Louis, Montreal, New Jersey, and I think I did Toronto as well. So 4 days in a row, I was doing those tests. So the teams, I guess, who was interested in me, try to see what's because I wasn't at the combine. So I was gassed like 4 days, like 4 VO2s, 4 Wingates and stuff. So I was like, oh my God.
The longest 30 seconds of your life, right? The Wingate.
Montreal back then, they had 45 seconds. So I did it at McGill University.
Yeah.
And my interpreter said, they're asking if, a couple people can come out and watch. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't know. Like, so I come in a room, I was like 300 people in there, like students. I'm like, what's happening? And then they told me, like, I know it's 30 seconds Wingate, but, and then actually 40, and they told me it's 45. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I did this 45 seconds, and then I went out, I ran from there and went and puke my guts out after that.
It's amazing how long 30 seconds is. I couldn't imagine how long 45 is. That's not, so that's wild. So you get to go up on the stage, 10th overall draft pick. Essentially 10th best 18-year-old in the world, judged by the NHL, and you barely even knew the draft existed. That's so cool. Why was Moscow Dynamo so important for you? Is that just because you were familiar with it, and why you didn't want to take that offer to come to North America and be a little closer to the team that drafted you?
That's a good question, actually. I never thought about this. Honestly, God, I never thought about this. I guess I looked back then. I looked this way. Oh, I gotta go and play with 16, 20, or 18-year-olds, as opposed to I'm playing against the men. I guess I felt it's better competition for me,
Right.
for myself to evolve or step to the next level, So
And it
I never
probably
even
was.
thought it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's I guess my thought. I never thought about it. I honestly, God, but
Right. And so and then Toronto never really leaned on you very much. Like they were, like you said, they were nice and they kind of let you
yeah,
make that choice. Yeah.
I guess that's throughout. Like I understand. So, but I get it. Ask my agent. So what happened exactly? But yeah, so they
Right.
didn't, interfere me with anything. So it was good.
So the next year, so then you're in Russia too, and I see you played it in Toronto as a 19-year-old. So I mean, I can relate to you only in the fact that I was young, but not that young. I mean, I was 21 when I got traded to Toronto, just turned 21. And for me, even never being in that city before and, playing for the Maple Leafs and, getting traded for one of their assistant captains, like it was a really big deal and trying to fit into that room. And I was just trying to put myself in your shoes and being like, wow, I mean, now you're 19, you're coming to the Maple Leafs as their 10th overall draft pick, not speaking any English, not really familiar with the culture. Like how did you deal with, like you said, you're a low maintenance guy. So I think like you're probably like your vibe is probably like was okay with that or helped you, I would assume. But like, how were you with that transition? And what do you remember from those first month or so getting over?
Well, let's step back a little bit. So I finished just before I came over to North America. So I finished my Dynamo Moscow, that first year there. So I never heard anything from the Leafs during the summer, so I inked another year. So I signed another year with Dynamo, right? About, I haven't heard anything from the Leafs, right? So anyway, so I signed one more year. So they played me in the first line. So we played 4 preseason tournaments, in Russia, they do it different training camps.
Okay.
So it's like a June. Back then it was full June. It's like literally like cardio, lifting and stuff and running and stuff. And then July kind of slowed down, and then end of July to August you start playing exhibition games. So you play, or exhibition tournaments. So you played about 30 games before even you step up and play the first regular season game. Yeah. So
Right.
I was, like I said, we were in Sweden, just finished quarterfinal game. Tomorrow is a semifinal game. So I'm playing, first line. I'm happy, and then my Russian agent called me. So tonight, grab your shit, and then pack your shit, and then 12 o'clock, go downstairs. There is a car for you waiting. You're going to Stockholm, and then you're going to Leafs training camp. Exactly. So all I had with me, like, a couple like underwear, a couple pair of socks, Dynamo Moscow suit with big logo, big D logo, and a small little duffel bag. That's all I had. So at midnight, I sneak out through the back door with my equipment, and next day I was at the Leafs training, or 2 days after I was at the Leafs training camp. So, so that was my journey too. So the coach was so pissed, but my agent said he'll deal with him, whatever. So anyway, and then when I came over through the training camp, obviously, like you said, you mentioned I never speak any English, so it was good for me. It was about 4 or 5 Russian guys at the time was the team. There was Yuskevich, Karpovtsev, Denny Markov, Igor Korolev. He took me under his wing. It was like unbelievable. So I didn't really need to speak any, English. So I didn't really. My first 3 years, I actually I was just hanging out with Russian guys, because for me, the biggest hurdle to overcome is if I talk to the guys in English, and if I say or pronounce something wrong, how you guys start making fun right away. So that was the biggest hurdle for me to start speaking English. So it took me almost 4 years, when I felt comfortable
Right.
with it. But how I managed my first couple of months, same, I didn't know what's happening around me, right? I didn't read newspapers. So I imagine, as a North American kid, you come into the Toronto Maple Leafs and read the papers and stuff, and it's all about he's 10th overall. I'm pretty sure they were saying that 100%. I didn't understand anything. It didn't bother me, nothing, right?
Right. Holy smoke! So you're back to that Russia story. So you essentially you defected, correct? Is that
well?
It
wasn't. It was already open country. It was open country. So it wasn't the KGB like Mogilny or Fedorov did, right? So
yeah.
But I defected team. Yeah, basically, yeah.
Gotcha.
I left.
So
the
that
team.
was why it was like in the still of the night, because you didn't really want to have to deal with the coaches and maybe they wouldn't let you go or whatever. He just was like,
Oh,
let's
they
get
wouldn't
you
let
out
me
of
go. No. That's why the agent told, like, it wasn't my plan. It was my agent's plan, right? Because he knew, like, if as soon as they announced that I'm leaving, they're like, yeah, they shut me down. I probably wouldn't be able to go anywhere. So
here. Right. That's
I know
wild.
it was crazy. I know it was like 4 hours drive to Stockholm, and then like I slept like for 3 hours, and 8 in the morning I was on the plane to Toronto.
So you must have trusted, obviously, your agent a ton, right? Like to listen to that directive and just be like, all right, I'm doing it.
No, because I think I was signed, because I signed, right? So I felt like I have to go.
Right.
Because my obligation was the Toronto Maple Leafs, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know. Like, so for me, it was like a next step. So at 16, I made my pro town hockey team, then Dynamo Moscow, and then the Leafs was, I guess, my next step. And then I came in. I didn't expect anything. I came with the mindset that I'm staying there. You know, like I didn't know it was the AHL. I didn't know it was AHL exists. So they could send me down potentially. You know, I didn't know what's or East Coast League. Again, they could potentially send me down there, right?
Yeah.
I came like, yeah, they called me, so I'm on the team. So that was my mindset. That was it.
Right.
And then, so I spent the training camp. So I was the last cut, so 2 days or 3 days before the regular season. So that was the last cut. So they sent me down to Newfoundland for I guess it was 10 days or something, because my agent told me, yeah, you kind of made the team, but they need to, so I guess they trade somebody so to open up spot for me. So I spent 2 weeks or 10 days in Newfoundland. I only played 2 games in there for the St. John's Maple Leafs, and I got called up on the 4th or 5th game during the season, and since I stayed. So
wow. Yeah. I mean, so I spent some time in St. John's too, a lot more than you did, but that's interesting too, because to go there is much different than Toronto, and what your experience is like there in that arena and everything else that was going on. But
that was old arena, the old barn, like
yeah,
I remember that. Oh
yeah.
But it was for me, yeah, I was calling. So I'm like, what's happening? So I came, like 18-year-old, like, yeah, they called me, so I must stay. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, why they sent me? So I calling my agent, like, when are they calling now? When are they calling now? Like every day, like, what's happening? Why did I came? But anyway, so 10 days or 12 days after. So I think they trade Stevie Sullivan or to somewhere, and then create room for me, or Freddie Madim, something like that. So they trade 1 or 2 guys, and then they called me, or Derek King, I think. Yeah, Derek King got traded, and then they brought me up.
So that was your first camp then with Toronto? That was your first exposure to the NHL?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you have any memories of that? Like, how did that compare for you from Moscow Dynamo?
Oh, it was completely different. Like you have all the time in the world. You're not allowed to practice more than 3 hours a day. So like in Russia, like it's like the training camp in Russia, you get up at 8 or whatever, and then you don't go back. Like you first morning practice, off ice, on ice, lunch, 2-hour nap, second practice. So nap to 4, and then 5 o'clock another off, like a dry land, and then another ice, and then you don't go back to your room till about 6:30. So that was a Russian training camp day.
3 ice times a day?
Two ice times, 2 dry lands.
Wow.
And then here, you come in within 3 hours, like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what's happening? so much free time and stuff.
Did you find yourself? That's actually interesting, because I talk about that quite a bit in here, sort of like what your experience is and what your environment is kind of creates you, so like you were exposed to this one way of doing it, which you just thought was normal, right? And then you come over to North America, now it's a new normal. Like, did you find yourself maybe being a guy that would go back and do a little extra just because you're used to it, or did you sort of just adopt the new North American style?
No, well, I think I tried at the beginning to do so, but yeah, they like, get out. Like,
yeah,
your time. What are you doing? Like, yeah, enough. Don't worry about it. Like, because they know they know exactly what you need. What's hockey player. Like, maybe in the summer you could do extra, right? But during the training camp, there is set up hours, and you don't need to do any more, because they want you to get ready and you feel 100% every single day, right? So, come on. every morning, so you're 100%, you know. So I didn't really. I asked the Russian guys like to translate or just to tell me what's happening, and they said, yeah, just 3 hours, no more than that. Like you don't need anything else, you know. If you want to go in a hotel gym, but then there is usually GMs or somebody, you know, they're running on a treadmill. They look at you. What are you doing here? Go rest, you know. Get ready for the next day. So,
I noticed do you remember those 2 games in St. John's at all? Like your first 2 games down there? Because those would have been your first pro games in North America.
Yes, I do.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
100%. It was I was running like an idiot, trying to hit everybody. Not scoring goals, but I tried to hit everybody. And then Sean Thornton, you know, like obviously, so he was there. So he just came up to me like, hey, said, kid, take it easy, because obviously you're not going to fight, so it had to be me, right? So so he kind of like, yeah, just go and score. But anyway, so it was against Quebec Citadels, I think, as I remember. And then, I was trying to like absolutely hit everybody and roll. Not like in a dirty way, but, you know, finish my checks and this. And then I was so exhausted. And then they called me up on the side like, yeah, I guess 10th overall, not supposed to do that. You know what I mean? I remember that. Yeah. So it was funny. But then, obviously okay. So I settled down, and then I got called up after that, right? So not because I was running around like an idiot. Right. I tried to play my game afterwards, so it was good. But I remember like first period was every single, like whoever had a puck, bam, 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 like finish my checks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Thordy. I played with Thordy there, and actually just reconnected with him. We might have him on as a guest. What a career he ended up having too, from being in St. John's.
Great, such a great guy too. He kind of took me, like I was only a short period of time there, but he's funny as hell, you know, and a great guy overall.
Yeah. Just a short break from the program to thank you for listening. I'm super grateful for all of you who have commented, who have left reviews, who are faithful listeners of the program. The program is growing, and I'm appreciative of that. But I am requesting that there is a lot of you who are listening, and I know there are some of you that haven't reviewed. There's some of you that haven't passed along the story, haven't spoken about the story publicly, or the show for that matter. And that is how you can help the podcast, and not help me. It's not helping me. It's helping those who haven't heard these guys' stories, like Nik coming over here from Kazakhstan, not knowing English, having to navigate the waters of the NHL, hearing the stories of Brian McCabe and Jared Bednar and Kenny Holland and all these great guests that I have been lucky enough to have on, that are willing to share their story to help other people navigate their own journey. And without those stories being made available, they can't be heard. So that's where you can do your part to rate, review, like, share, have conversations about it, to continue to grow this, to make sure that these great stories, that these awesome little takeaways and nuggets that are left by all these amazing guests are able to be heard by other people. So please review, like, share. I'm grateful if you want to take the time to do that. I would love to read some reviews on the podcast. And again, this is live, or was live, in the Facebook group, my Facebook group, Up My Hockey parent group. It's a private group where I talk about mindset, and I talk about the hockey journey, and I talk about some of these intangibles that really makes a difference for hockey players. So if you're a hockey fan or a hockey parent that's interested and would like to be in the front row seats for these podcasts and be able to ask your own questions to these awesome guests, by all means, please join us on Facebook. So without taking up any more time from the interview, I'll get you back to Nik Antropov. So you get called back up. End up playing 66 games that year, and I remember from the last interview that I heard you on. Do you remember how tall you were when you got drafted? I wanted to make sure if I got this aspect correct.
Well, what I think I was 6'3", maybe 6'4", and I was like 189 pounds, something like that. I was so skinny. I was like really, really skinny. Like like at the like combines, I guess, or at the draft, they do that picture of you standing against the wall with your wings spread like this.
Yeah.
That was the most. That was the worst thing I ever like. In my mind, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so skinny. Like they look at me like it was like shame for me to do so, right? So it was crazy.
But yeah, I mean, so okay, you think you're 6'3", 6'4", and you're 6'6" now,
Yeah.
correct? So that's pretty wild because I know, I mean, men can grow, after 18. My dad actually grew an inch and a half at 21 or whatever, but it's not common, So as a guy that gets 10th overall, and then now all of a sudden you're growing. I mean, you weren't getting any heavier while you were growing, I assume. It's hard enough.
Not the first couple of years, no, definitely
right.
not.
So you're like 6'6", 190 in the NHL. Like, was you were years away from what you are now, right? Like, I mean, that must how did that impact you playing at that level, not being physically mature yet?
Yeah, I think it hurt me. If you look at my first 4 or 5 years of my career, like the game numbers, I never played more than like 66 games, I guess. In my first look at the bio, I guess I got banged up, so I wasn't ready for that physical game. Like yes, I played in Russia against the men, but there was barely hitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming into the NHL, and then there's everything like bam, like so much less room, which I loved it, but. It slowed me down. Like I had to miss with the shoulder injury, like 29 games. Then I had 2 ACL surgeries my first 2 years in the NHL, back to back, basically. So I wasn't physically ready. 100%. You're right.
Did you, with the injuries too, and having them young? I was fortunate with my career. I had one shoulder surgery towards the end, 28. I mean, I don't know. All I have is like my experience, but I wasn't as good after I came back. Like I just didn't feel like I had the mobility. I never really recovered the strength. Do you feel that those impacted you like later on? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I like, especially after my first ACL surgery. You're 19. Like it's a summer. You want to be like everywhere, but like you're going to rehab. So I didn't really pay a lot of attention to. I was there every day that I was supposed to be. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't doing a little bit. Like I should have done it a little bit extra, so it would but it still took me about 5 months, right? 6 months to get back, which normal for any ACL surgery, right? For the pro athletes, but I was sitting in my back of my mind, like that first year when I came back after ACL surgery. So I was sitting in like I wasn't afraid to go into the corners and stuff like that, but I was I don't think afraid is the right word, but I went there, but I was a little bit more cautious, I guess, so make sure hesitant. Hesitant, exactly. Yeah. So but it affects you actually. Like if you look at the long way, it affects you. If your mind is not ready, after like major surgeries and stuff like that, that affects you as a player. So 100%.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things, actually, guys coming back, right? You believing, having that belief that it is going to be okay, or that knee is fine, or whatever the thing is. When, it's so wild, right? I mean, like you're not that far removed from it. I mean, I feel like I'm totally far removed, but like now, I would assume like what you're doing now, and I don't want to fast forward, but like now, like you're helping guys that are making that transition. That's directly what you're supposed to be doing. I know you said that you had a lot of Russians on the team there and you named a lot of them. It's that's sort of a different scenario though, right? Like I would assume the team now is like really trying to prepare these guys for the cultural shift, for having them ready with English, like all those off ice things that are so important to being good on the ice, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. That's what the team does now. Like, I mean, don't like they offer, like when I came over first time, they offered me like the English classes, to take. So I think it took 1 or 2 classes, but it was like the schedule was, when during the year, so you travel this and this. So I learned all my English in the dressing room, like literally what I speaking. Like I didn't take any English classes, nothing. So now the teams, like I just literally translate to Barabanov, the new signee for the Leafs, right? So they gave him 2 English classes per day. So he's over the Zoom call, he's learning English now. We were doing like a workout, just showing him how to do this certain things, So it was like, yeah, team does really, really a lot for the players right now, for the Eastern European players especially, right? So when they come over here, so they feel really comfortable, and know a little bit of everything.
Because the way you talk about it, it's interesting. Because you being in that bubble almost sounds like there was, in some ways, it was advantageous to you, because you could really just you had your Russian buddies. They could talk to you. You went on the ice. You did your thing. Couldn't read the papers. Weren't listening to the radio. The coaches probably left you alone. Yeah, and the coaches probably left you alone a little bit too.
Well, they rely on the Russians, to help me out, right? Obviously,
right.
So, but it was, I guess, that's how I survived 10 years, or my first 5 years with the Leafs. It was the toughest years for me. Like, thinking back now, back then I was just, okay, injury, I get over the injury, I play, so I didn't think anything about it, right? And now I'm thinking back, so the media was on me, the fans were on me, I got booed, my first 3-4 years, because, first 10th overall, injury prone every single time, like every year play no more than 60 games, So everybody was I wouldn't say against me, but like a lot of people kind of not with organization, but outside, kind of give up on me. But by me not understanding, not reading papers, nothing, nothing bothered me. So that's you can say I was strong mentally, but I wish I didn't wish actually. Imagine if I understood everything, like I wouldn't be probably playing. Like I wouldn't survive 2-3 years in the Leafs. Like, guaranteed.
What's a tough market, man? Like, and it's kind of crazy too. I mean, because I had Brian McCabe on, who I know you played a long time with, and Caber and I go back to Spokane, and I mean, he's just an awesome dude, and he was like, his story with Toronto is like it's kind of what you went through, but almost in reverse, right? Like he came there, he found himself, he started playing unbelievable hockey, right? Putting up great big points, kind of a top 3-4 defenseman in the NHL.
And
kind
then
of
one mistake, and then one mistake. That's it.
Then one mistake, and all of a sudden, and then everyone's watching for the next mistake, right? And then sooner or later, every time he touches the puck, he's getting booed, and it's like, what happened? Like he said, like even outside, going to get a coffee, like people would heckle him and stuff, like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said it was.
I guess I got same thing, but I never understood anything.
Right. And which is wild, because you were a young guy. I mean, he was at the other side of it, which maybe is a little bit easier to deal with. But I guess, I mean, you said yourself you weren't immune to it, meaning like you didn't know that you knew it was going on, but you probably didn't know how much it was going on. Did you ever think that, like when you're on the ice, did it ever affect you?
Oh, yeah. Like, especially, I think it was after my third or fourth year to, I think third year, somewhere there along there. So like, I didn't, like, when the shootout started after the lockout, so there was a shootout introduced into the league, and I was going into the farthest corner of the bench and pray that that Pat Quinn wouldn't call my name to go on the shootout. Because I had that experience at once, and like a whole 19 or whatever 1,000 people started booing me, on a shootout, and I didn't score, and it was everybody's cheering. And after that, I was sitting in the farthest corner, turned my number against, like a little bit like this, so kind of facing him, so he doesn't see my number. So I was praying, please do not call my name. That's how bad it was for me,
Yeah, that's Did he ever talk to you about that? Like, did anyone talk to you about that?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember. No.
Right. Because like that mental side of it, and again, it's not a lack of belief in your own skills. I assume. Like, I assume you probably still felt pretty comfortable out there on the ice, but it's just that judgment, right? And putting yourself in that scenario is like, it's just a natural human thing to not. Why would you want to be out there, right? Like,
no, literally, like 100%, yeah. Like, it was, I remember this as it was yesterday, yeah. Like it was bad. Like it was, I don't know how bad on a scale 1 to 10, but for me, it was pretty bad. Like if you want to be out there, you want to be the guy who decided the game or shootout or something. But I was sitting and praying that please do not call my name, on the shootouts. During the game, that's a little different, but shootouts that's
Yeah, 100%. You have time to think about it, right? And it's like,
time to think about before you get to this puck. You start skating, and then like everybody, 19,000 people looking at you and expect you not to score, to cheer, like you're not scoring, like kind of let you know.
and that's in your home rink too. Like that
Yeah.
is crazy.
So it was. I talk a lot with. There was a Russian lady, and I wasn't talking a lot, but I was talking a bit about this, and then Paul Henry.
Yep.
So he helped me a lot actually with that. So the Russian lady that worked at the agency, it was Don Miner agency. So she connected me with him, and I talk to him like every month twice a month. So he kind of helped me out through this a little bit, not like kind of psychological. He just kind of get my confidence back, just talking about all the positive things, just kind of block this, and he helped me a lot with that. So
Cool.
which I really, so we still talk about it, and we see each other pretty much 2-3 times a year when he's around, so we still keep in touch. Yeah. So
do you mind talking about that anymore? Like what those discussions were like, or how he what he did?
Again, we were just like going to like a dark room, in the living room or somewhere, just me and him, and then English barrier, English, so I didn't really. I felt like safe in there, you know what I mean? Like you just keep telling me, I remember this. Like he was at the Hamelina World Juniors when I played there. So then at the Winnie, so just all these good little things, like in what you did before, and just kind of play them again and again. It helps you, just stuff like that. Nothing like on a psychological part. There isn't like just small. I guess he knows how to, touch people somewhere, and then to get good memories back to you. So that's all we talk about. Well, I was mostly listening. Honestly, that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, you say it's not psychological, but I mean that is.
I guess it is psychological.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting, because I mean, Paul Henry, I was introduced to him with the Canadian World Junior team. That's how I started or was introduced to him and got to know him myself. And there's an interesting gap there, because when you start talking about sports psychologists, like for players to go to one, sometimes there's a big barrier there, because you do feel like, oh, that's for people who have something wrong with them, or there's, and there's that, it's kind of like, well, and then we're athletes, right? Like we're pro athletes that have been trained to be tough and strong and all this stuff. And so like that whole thing there is like weird, but for Paul, or if you find the right guys, I mean, there's obviously nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing broken about anybody. It's just the fact of like, hey, man, we need some support sometimes, right?
But you don't think at yourself, right? Like, oh, like you look at the outside people going to psychology, like stuff like that. Oh, like so it must be something, but you never think about yourself that something wrong inside of you. But it is like when you're sitting against the glass like this and waiting your name, like, yeah, please don't call my name. Yeah, there is wrong. There is lots wrong, inside of you. You just have to get a right person to let it out or whatever, or just to listen in my case, right? Like, so
and channel the positives. I mean, there's a whole bunch of tools and stuff, but I mean, the guys that do it really well, like he found in you what worked for that, right? Like what to tap into to get you realigned with how to play your best hockey. When did you, maybe you did right from the get-go, but I mean, you said that you were, you weren't quite physically ready. I'm sure your skill set was ready. The fans were kind of on you. When did you first start feeling like comfortable? I'm an NHL guy. I can produce, and I'm in the right place.
So probably my 5th or 6th year in the league with the Leafs. So I gained a little bit of a weight. I was a 203 at the time, and then I gained a little bit more. Not just naturally, not like working out just specifically for that, so obviously I grew up a couple of more inches, and I realized, so maybe my 6th or 7th year, I would say, because I was I tried to learn the game now, from this sitting on the bench. Now I'm like, okay, so obviously I'm a big guy, so my area is around corners and around the net. When I realized that, so I had to go there, and back then I was like, before, you remember those days when you go to you get like couple cross checks in the head, So when I realized that, so I'm a big and strong, and I can battle with Darren Hatcher or Chris Pronger, you know what I mean? Like guys like that, and not give up, So that's when I start feeling like, you know what, like I got to be more bullier there, I guess my 6th, 7th years or something like that.
Gotcha.
So that's when I realized. So I was like 30, 35 pounds heavier already, right?
Right.
when I first came in the league. So, and then basically I made my office there. So I used to love to be in front of the net, and I was working every practice, every morning skate. I was working and tipping the pucks, like literally I was every practice at the end of the practice and a morning skate. I always, gather 40-30 pucks, and for the blue line, and ask one of the defensemen, just shoot at me, shoot anywhere, shoot high, shoot.
Yeah.
I work on that. And then, cause if like all the shots, like 60 or 70% of the shots end up in front of the net, for the rebound and stuff like that. So when I realized that and I started working on it, so that's when I turned the fans around actually. So they were kind of, was cheering when I was scoring and stuff like that. It was cool to see actually. It was a good experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So you kind of reinvented yourself a little bit. Is that accurate to say that?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Cause I know I was big. I was always but in the NHL back in those days, like shit, like what's the average height was 6'2", 6'3". All the guys were kind of, plus minus similar, right?
Yeah.
And I did realize this by myself. Nobody taught me, nobody even told me. Right? Obviously, it's like I look at my goal production, so where the goals were scored, and it was like 2 or 3 from outside, but the majority of my goals were kind of around the nets, within 6-10 feet of it, right? And then I start work on it, and then I look at the Dave Andrichak's video too, right? Because he was the master there, right? So, and then I started working on it, kind of reinvent, get a new. I guess I learned a new skill, and then I started using more and more, and obviously I started shooting more and more, and the success that I had, if I can call it success, came,
Right. Well, no, I mean, that's success. I mean, you ended up wearing a letter there too in Toronto, starting to have 20-goal seasons. You would have had the one in 06, 07, but it looks like you had some injuries there, ended up with 18. That's tough for guys. I mean, I want to congratulate on you because the whole time going up, and you see that now in the skills development, but you were the best player in Kazakhstan, like you said, you were the guy, right? And you're being the guy, and when you're the guy, you want to hold the puck more, right? And you want to be the guy making the plays, and you see yourself as being that player, and maybe you could have been that player, but you kind of reinvented yourself to be the guy who's the net front guy, right? To be the guy that's going to stand in front and take the tips and take the hacks, and that's a way different mindset than probably how you walked into Toronto in the first place. So some guys aren't willing to make that. Some guys aren't willing to make that choice, though, that change. And
absolutely,
and I think that's pretty cool that you did that. When did you start playing with Mats? Because I know that you and him played together for quite a while. Did you not?
Yeah, I think we played 2.5, maybe 3 seasons towards his last 2 or 3 years in Toronto. So that's where we started playing together. Me, Mats, and Alexei Panikarovsky. So that was the line. If you look, So 3. We were the smallest guy was, I think, shortest guy was Pony, and I guess 6'4". Mats is 6'4", and Pony 6'4", 230. Right. I'm 6'6", 235 or 232, and Mats was 6'4" and 232. Same. So that's almost that's a big line, So we did a lot of damage actually in the offensive zone. So nobody, especially with the new rules that came in after that lockout. Remember, no hooking, no grabbing, nothing like that. So
right.
So it was. I was always amazed by Mats actually, how he handled all the pressure and everything off the ice, on the ice, but the way he just used his body when he played, just that small little step in front of you and you're done. You don't need. So it was really, really helpful, and it was a good leader, So we talked a lot about our plays on ice as well. So it was a good experience for me. Yeah,
that's pretty special. I mean, Again, you're in the greatest league in the world and putting up good numbers yourself, but it's just there is just some guys that are just better, that just it's crazy, right? And he was just one of those guys, right?
I know. You ask yourself how, what's the difference? Obviously there is a lot of difference if you look and the game exactly what's happening. Yeah, you'll notice what's the difference between the guy and just the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he was. I got to play with him, actually, him and Wendell for a little while when I was there, a couple games, and that was super special. Definitely wasn't comfortable doing in that spot. Not really sure what my role was supposed to be there, but it was just really wild to be in the locker room and just to see him because. Again, saying that, I mean, Mats was always the guy that was the guy, right? And then there was other guys playing with him, but he always put up the points, and he was always doing what he was just that guy. And one thing I remember about him, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I just thought his backhand was the most ridiculous thing I'd seen.
He was always, even during the practice or during the games, he was always, if he scored the backhand, he makes sure everybody knows, like, you see that backhand? He was always like, bragging about it. Like, it was hilarious. He's like, always saying, my backhand is like faster than your slap shot, or like,
Yeah.
It was one of the hell of a backhand. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, he would go cross ice, backhand sauce, like hard. Like he was deadly with that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really special with him. What with Toronto there, and like, so you kind of ended in Toronto. I mean, at the highest kind of peak of your time in Toronto, right? So you had grown into that role there. You're now a leader. You had a letter on your chest. What did that transition do for you? Like having them say, "Hey, Nick, like we want you to wear a letter here." Like was that a pretty big occasion for you? Oh
yeah, it was something special, obviously. Yeah. So like I said, back then I already know exactly where I am, who I am, and who I'm playing for. So. That was my ninth year or 8th year in the league, right? Obviously, so I know I learned English. I realized that Toronto it's a mecca of the hockey world. We're playing there for so long, it's special. And then to be able, when they come up and ask you to wear a leather, it was really, really special for me. Obviously, I take a full pride of it, and then being one of the leaders already, when, like you said, when coaches come up to you and ask you, like, some little suggestion, maybe how should we run the practice here, or should we do little small things like that? It was something new for me, but I was really, really proud of it. That I grew up to that point.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Actually, it was great.
That's super cool. Do you remember? Like you said, you'd grown into yourself probably as a man too. I mean, you had your own kids and you're married, and you evolve as a person, right, through that whole scenario. So you're obviously more comfortable in your own skin, but having that letter on, did you feel like you needed to take on more responsibility or become something maybe more of yourself that you hadn't shown in the past?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Just the leadership, like I said, like I was watching Mats when Mats left. Obviously, was no captain for 2 years or 3 years, I guess, and 1 year after me. So it was a 4 of us. It was me, Jamal Mayers, I think it was Dominic Moore and somebody else. Like we were sharing kind of, the letters between a 4 of us. So it was I would say what they call veteran group, I guess.
Yeah.
So you need to step up. That's what I want to say. Like you want to be the guy now. You more responsible on the ice, off the ice. Obviously, you want to carry your team and lead them, right? So that's what I was trying to do, obviously. And it's a lot to do, like to take that, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of more pressure, but I loved it every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, there's more responsibility in the locker room for sure. Like you're definitely talking with the coaches more. And in Toronto, I would assume that the PR responsibility would have gone up as well. Did you find yourself in front of more cameras and answering more questions and doing that type of stuff more?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I didn't mind that. Like, I mean, it's our job as a players, I understand. So like, I'll give you example in Russia. When I finished with NHL, I went to play in the KHL for 2 years, and none of the Russian players, like, they hate to get interviewed after the game. We're talking about it. I feel it's our obligation as a pro sport, like pro athletes. Like that's how we interact with fans. That's media does their job as well, right? So like, once I learned English and felt comfortable in front of, like, on my 5th, 6th year, so I didn't mind talking, obviously.
Right.
So
right, and that was probably you can't wear a letter if you can't speak English, obviously, right?
I guess.
Yeah,
of course,
North America, and even to really assimilate into the culture, right? I mean, now you're Canadian, I understand, right? You have your citizenship, so now you're a Canadian, so like, you must totally notice a massive difference between the Nik Antropov that was there the first 4 years to how you are now, right? And that English must have been a big piece. You said you just learned it strictly in the room, eh? You decided to have more conversations.
Never took a class. Never took a class. As like I said, my biggest hurdle was like the guys making fun of you for pronouncing something wrong, and then that's kind of shut me down my first 2-3 years. Like I was more listening, and then if I hear a new word in the conversation that I did know, I would go and ask Igor Korolev or Yuskevich, or McGillney when he came in the team, So
Yeah.
I would ask and try to use that in my dialogue next time, and that's literally, it's like a small little Lego puzzle. That's how I learn English, basically.
Do you know any other languages?
Well, I know Russian, obviously, and then that's it. No,
Gotcha.
I can say some bad words in about 10 different languages, but because you play with all these Czechs and Swedish guys and Finns guys,
Right.
So, but no, just English, not to perfection, obviously, but still learning, because my oldest kids, like, always makes fun of me, like, what'd you say? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, when I went to Germany, I don't know. I mean, I always liked languages. I always really admired people that could speak more than one language. And for me, there was some type of a mental block that I just couldn't really, like, I was really motivated in Germany to learn German. I was like, I want to learn this, and took the classes and was trying to work it at home. And for me, I had two mistakes. One, I was worried, like how you were just saying, like I would get out of my comfort zone. And the way that I just didn't want to, I felt like I didn't want to expose myself, kind of, right? Like I didn't want to make that big mistake. And I find that people the guys that learn it the quickest are the guys that just don't give a rip, right? Like they just.
That's an example where Alex Panikarovsky that played with me.
Yeah.
So we came in a year apart. So he didn't give a damn about making a mistake. He would just like blah, 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 everything. And guys were making fun of him. He didn't care. And I was and he learned.
And
he learned like a year. Well, probably the same amount of time, but he came a year after me, so 1 year lesser than me, I guess. But
Gotcha.
he was funny. Like everybody loves him, and then he was like just like train wreck, blah 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 blah, everything together, Like, and then guys like just dying laughing on the floor on him, and but that's his personality. He didn't really care.
Right, that's great. Yeah, when I was in Germany, I mean, the funny thing there was too is because of the German imports, not the German, but the German, the local guys that were there. They loved speaking English, so like they wanted to speak English, and I wanted to speak German to them, and it's just like I just ended up speaking English with them, and that was the biggest thing. If I would have just forced myself into those conversations, it would have helped. But neither here nor there. So let's talk about you leaving Toronto. So that trade, did you know that trade? Were you expecting that trade to happen, or was it just kind of?
Oh yeah, no, I expected since training camp of that, like the at the beginning of season. I know, like, as Brian Burke came in, Ron Wilson came in. I was at the last year of my deal with the Leafs, so it kind of put everything together for me, so obviously I was on the peak of my performances right at the time, so I knew they can get something off me, and obviously you listen to the media here and there, so you hear your name come up all the time. And so I anticipated, let's put it this way.
Right. Was there, with that new group that comes in, I know when new GM comes in, I was on the wrong side of that a couple of times. I mean, they want to have their own guys, and they want to bring in their own things and put their own mark on it. Was there any talk of you staying there at all, or did you know that
Zero.
You're gone?
Zero.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Never had this conversation, man.
Gotcha. So at this time, do you have a wife and kids when you got traded?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my kids were so it was 2000. So 9 and 8 years old.
9 and 8. So they've been entrenched. They were born in Canada, so they're right. So they're Canadians, and now Dad gets traded. How does that work with you, first of all, and how does that work with the family?
So for me, it was obviously hard, right? When you hear your name, I was actually, the funny story. Like I came to the game the night before, right? So that's the only season I could have played full season, 82 games. If you look at the stats, I played 81 games.
Yeah. So
I came to the dressing room the day before trade deadline. So we played New Jersey at home. I start, undressing, and then one of the coaches was like, "Come here." I'm like, I knew right away, right? So I addressed. I went to the coach's office, and they said, "Yeah, playing tonight." Yeah. So I'm like, call me like an hour earlier, right? Why I drove all the way here, you know what I mean? So, and I was the one of the earliest guys. I always like to be at as you become older, so you go to the dressing room like 3.5 hours before the game, just get ready, this. So I was one of the first guys in the dressing room. So by the time everything happened, so I'm already making my way back to the garage, where we park, and then all the guys coming into the game, and I'm just coming out from the game. Like, what's happening? I'm like, I'll see you, I guess I'm not playing, so I guess I'll see you down the road, good luck. And I went back home, watched the game, and then next day the trade center starts, or, trade deadline started, and I was waiting. So look, whole morning, I guess it's at 3 p.m., right? Eastern time it finished. And I was like 3:45, like nothing happening. I'm like, what, Like, I'm like, what's happening? Nobody calls, nothing, like from like, and then 3:50, nothing, 3:52, 2:52, 2:53.
Yeah.
And then about 4 minutes before deadline, I see my name going to New York. And then right away, Burki called me like, hey, listen, so thanks for the service, blah, 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 good luck. So you're a Ranger now. And then I packed up. So obviously the GM of New York called me. I booked a flight same day at 9. So that was a little sad. Yeah. So when my kids find out, so they're kind of, crying and stuff like that. So I just left. Yeah. So the same night I left, and then next day we played against New York Islanders on the island. Toughest game I ever played in the NHL, I would say. That's the biggest rivalry. Like, I thought Toronto-Ottawa is a heated rivalry back in the day. Those New York Islanders Rangers, oh my God.
Really?
It was really like, they absolutely hate each other, I guess.
That's wild. So you go in there for so game 1, and you're like, holy smokes.
I know. It's a different division, obviously, different everything. So good teams, but travel was easy, right? So Toronto, it's 45-minute, 50-minute flight to Toronto. So it's not bad. So my family came visit for me, because I was staying at the hotel for the rest of the playoffs and everything, right? So they came in visit me during the March break, so which is good. And then that's how I got traded 4 minutes before the trade deadline.
Yeah. I got traded twice in the deadline, and neither time did I even was aware that the deadline was happening. It's kind of funny, like just sort of oblivious. Yeah. One time I was sleeping in my bed in the AHL and got a phone call, woke me up. That's when I went to Toronto. And then the other time I was out shopping in St. John's, Newfoundland, and came home, and my roommate was like, LA, baby, LA.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of wild. So anyways, but I never did, like, all of the ups and downs that I did personally, and different leagues and teams, and I never had a family, right? And now having a family, right, and having these 3 kids that obviously a massive part of your life, and you are a massive part of theirs. Like, it's just like, wow, like that'd be interesting making that transition. But I guess for you, like you said, it was there, so you kind of. You knew that you were going to go there, they could come visit, and then the next year you ended up in Atlanta, where I assume that they came with you, right? Like, you relocated everybody.
Yeah. Everybody went there, after that. So it was, so that was an important part of the season when I get traded to New York. So it was, I think it was like 18 games, I think I played there. So it was like just before playoffs, and then that was my first time back into the playoffs since 2004 season, I would say, right?
Right.
So that was the biggest, so it was an important time for me. And we spoke with my wife, and I said, so just come visit. But then, it's like I said, 45 minutes, but like with kids and stuff, go back, go there. That's what they 8 and 9. So they just come visit for like 12 days during the March. Yeah. And then, it was a bit back to business afterwards. So I was so excited when I went back to the, playoffs. It was a heck of a series. We played against Washington, but too bad.
Nothing like playoff hockey in the NHL, right?
Oh, that's when you start realizing, when you're a young guy. I made it Toronto, so first 4 years, playoffs. We were a pretty good team, so we're in the playoffs every 4 years in a row. If you look at the stats, right? And I'm like, okay, but that's perfect. That's part of and then like 5-6 years without the playoffs, and then you're like, holy, it's like it's amazing how it works, right? And then you're like almost 30 years old already, and you're like first time like in 6 years back in the playoffs, and you're like jumping up and down like a small little kid, excited to be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it was good.
How the hockey's just different too, right? It's
completely different. Yeah, like back in the day. Yeah, so it's every game is like, yeah, so small little mistake. Yeah, that's it. That's what it counts, right? So whoever make less mistakes win the game all the time.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
that
How was that?
series, we were up.
Go ahead.
We were up 3-1 in the series against Washington, right? And the turning point, I think, was when Torres. Remember, Torres got sprayed by the Washington fans. Like we were playing game 3, I think, or 4 in Washington. He got sprayed with the beer, and then he like got suspended for 1 game. So I think that was we were up 3-1. So I think that was the turning point of the series. And then obviously game 7 was.
What happened in game 7?
Well, game 7, no, it was a good game. Like we were up 1-0. I actually scored, so that's why I was always reminding myself. But anyway, we were up 1-0. They tied up, and it was a good game. So it was a really, really even game. And then if you YouTube it, Sergei Fedorov, I guess 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes in the game, this much room between Henrik's shoulder and the crossbar. He had this much room just to puck fit him, and then he just rifled it there, and then that was it.
Huh. Yeah, that's crazy, man. The margin for error is so small, man, in the playoffs. It's crazy. Yeah. What was that like going? I mean, you had this one experience, and I've talked about that a little bit on this show, is like how different it is within a team or a culture and an organization, you know, like how they go about their business. You think the NHL is the NHL, but you know, you being in Toronto, Atlanta, Rangers, Winnipeg, I would imagine that every one of those little pockets of time was very different, even though they were all called the NHL.
So I would say Toronto and Rangers are on a similar pace. Are both original 6 teams. You know, they both, you know, carrying themselves high, and I expect nothing but high. You know, like making playoffs every year. So they were similar kind of organizations. You know. Atlanta, obviously, a small market team, was different, so we didn't really have a small little fan base. So it was like 7,000 people, you know, at the game every night, unless we're winning like 5 or 6 in a row. So and then so it was a great time, you know, like you have absolutely zero pressure from the media standpoint in Atlanta, right? So it was like 2 reporters doing their job and nothing, right? So even and then obviously going back to Winnipeg, it was that was a story that was unreal. Like I've never experienced anything like that. Those fans the first year especially, it was unbelievable.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, from a points perspective, your time in Atlanta, and that's when you signed your big deal, meaning contract wise. You know, you're making a lot of money in that deal, and you had the 24 goals and 67 points. Do you frame that as your best year? Would you say that was your best year in the NHL?
Well, if you look at the points, yes, I guess points wise, yes, but I would put that season and then 2 seasons prior that was the Toronto and the Rangers. So those obviously I really, really, really enjoyed, you know, playing hockey. Like I was everything kind of going my way. Like my head was straight, you know, not that before it wasn't straight, but when everything goes your way, you just flying, you know, everything you touch the puck, you either scoring or you get the point, or, you know, so that was really, and then I had a hip. So I played that season in Atlanta with bad hip, actually, since I hurt a little labrum in my before, actually during the training camp. So I played on pills pretty much every game. That's 72 games that I played, I think, there.
Oh, wow.
On the pain. So the whole thing was on the painkillers. And then when we were eliminated from the playoff race, so that's why I played 72 games. So we kind of decided to shut it down because it was my first year and I signed a 4-year deal there, right?
Gotcha.
So I went and did the surgery with Dr. Berdia in Nashville, and it was more severe than what we thought, because MRI just would show just small little labrum tear, like about a couple of millimeters. But then when they opened up hip, it was like absolutely complete mess in there. You know, they didn't see it in the MRI. So, and that's why you see the points production slower the next season, and then after that, obviously, so. Because it took me a while just to get back, and then coaches changed. Greg Ramsey comes in, so he didn't believe in me. So he actually scratched me from the opening night, although I was ready to go, you know.
Oh, wow.
So,
And that was in Atlanta.
but yeah, so yeah, that was in Atlanta, my second year. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, fighting through injury is tough. We kind of already talked about that. I mean, plus it's slowing you down. Plus you're at an age where it's probably a little bit harder to recover, how you'd want. And then you have a coach that's not putting you in the lineup. What did you have to, how'd you deal with that year? Did you have to like earn his trust? Did you ever earn his trust, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I don't think I ever learned his trust, but I was always the guy that just, put my head down and work. And just show, I'm never go to the coaches' offices and just beg, hey, what's wrong? I mean, I'm probably maybe should have done that once or twice, because I guess it opened up the relationship between the player and, but I was at this age, I was 31, 30. So I think I was old enough, not, I think, I don't know what's the right word. I should have probably went and talked to him, but I never did. So I just put my head down, like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't see me in the lineup, I'll show you in the practice, or like, hopefully you notice me. Whatever right. I'm giving, I'm going to be playing. I'm not going to complain. I've never been a guy who complained about ice time, although I should have probably a couple of times,
Right. I like to ask guys about their preparation. You said you came in, like you started to find your kind of your niche, and you started to be a guy that showed up early and 3.5 hours before. What did that preparation look like for you? Like, what did you do anything mentally with your preparation? Did you warm your body up physically? Like, what was the process that you would go through?
Nothing mentally. No, it was fun. You go in the rink, it's fun. As soon as you enter the rink and dressing room, it's like it's excitement start coming in. So I think mentally you don't really have to. In my case, at least, like some guys probably, sitting in a corner somewhere thinking about something. I think it's for me, it was, if I do that, I overthink a bit and then you get burned, No, just physically, just warming up my body, like I would go on the rink, change, and then, go have a coffee or something like that, and a muffin or some more muffin top. Go to the trainer's office, talk to the guys, having a couple of jokes here and there, and then for half an hour, and then just go and do like warm up, like I used to do, like as I get older, like I said, like 45 to 40, like 30 to 45-minute warm up just before, just to get yourself ready and stuff. So that was right. Mostly it.
Gotcha. Yeah, isn't that wild too? Like in an environment like the NHL, everyone had their own way of doing it. Like you said, there'd be the guy in the corner, there'd be the goalie with towel over his head. There'd be some guys cracking jokes in the middle of the floor. It's just like everyone had their own way, but you kind of do figure out what that way is that works for you, and it all fits together.
Well, let's put it this way: my first years in the league, I would come in exactly 2 hours right on dot, exactly walking into the dressing room 2 hours before. I would change, and I would, I don't even remember what I was doing. I was sitting watching TV for and then warm up for 5 minutes before, go in the gym, and then warm up there. And then again, came up from the warm up off the ice and just sat at my stall like this. So everybody think I'm like a retarded or something like that. Are you ready? I was like, I didn't understand anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was just sitting there, and then Pat Quinn would come in, show a couple things on the whiteboard, but I used to sit just like this, like nothing, And he actually comes up to Igor Korolev once and said, "Is this kid okay?" And Igor had to translate to me. I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm just like, okay, just want to make sure."
That's funny. Yeah, I remember that too. Like I think that's kind of part about learning how to be a pro. Not necessarily that you have to be there early. There was some guys that I played with that were really good pros that came in late. Or on the dot, but at the beginning of my career, I was always the guy that was like just there. Whatever the coach said you had to be there, like that's when I would show up, just because I didn't know what to do, honestly. Like I didn't really know what I was doing there early, and I was a guy that, like you, I felt that the less I kind of really thought about stuff, the better off I was. So I'd be stretching in the middle of the floor, and I'd be that guy, chirping guys or trying to get guys to laugh. And I think, but I did, as I got older, I figured out that, there was a place for me to kind of worry, like to deal with the mindset stuff and to get yourself prepared and not just sort of be automatic all the time. So I kind of found a happy medium myself, but no, that's cool. Why don't we, we're running out of time here, and actually we should talk about the Jets a little bit, because that's a really big thing, like bringing hockey back to Winnipeg. You're part of that team that comes there. I think you score the first goal, don't you, ever for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I'm in trivia now. NHL trivia forever.
That's super cool though. Like, what's your memories of that city and that
It was
year and being a part of that?
well. I've been in Winnipeg in '98, right? '99 during the World Juniors, so I kind of know the city a little bit, right? But then when they announced that Atlanta moving to Winnipeg, and obviously went on the internet, started researching a little bit more, right? Because, like I said, I had a family already, so just what to expect and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was amazing. So we came in a little earlier. Obviously, I rent a house there, and when they announced Jets are coming in, so the prices went like way, 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 way high. It was crazy. That was like one of the funniest moments too. But anyway, so we got the house, and then just that. I was always like, let's put it this way. So when they announced, and then when it's come close to the season, the training camp, in my mind, every night I keep telling myself, I want to be the guy that scored the first goal.
Oh, really?
I was talking to myself about this, like how amazing would it be, like it would be like, and then every day closer and closer and closer, like the hype in the city was like you can just see like everywhere you go, like it's all Jets, like it was amazing. And then every every day closer and closer. And that game day against Montreal, I was sitting, and that was probably the only moment in the dressing room, like you said, I was sitting like this and just keep thinking like, it would be amazing, it would be really amazing if I scored this goal. Like that's how like, And then obviously it happened in the second period, I believe. It was ecstatic. It was like holy, like whatever went through my mind. I don't know. I don't even know what went through my mind, but it was awesome. I know my daughter and got spilled with the beer when they started celebrating. Everybody jumped, and the guy behind her like just dumped the beer on her. My wife was yelling at this guy. She was telling me after that. So
what was the goal like?
The goal, like you mean like the play?
How'd you score it? Yeah.
Oh, in front of the net. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at it. It's pretty cool actually. Yeah, so I battled in front of the net. The guy tripped me, but the puck. So I was in front in the crease. The guy tripped me. So the referee called the penalty. So he put his arm for delay penalty. So I saw already as I was falling. So the puck went to the point. So I got up quickly just to get a body possession on this guy again, on the defenseman. And the guy, I think it's Stewart, yeah, the defenseman, shot the pucks. I tipped it, and I turned around right away. So there was another rebound and stuff, and it came up back to me, and I just backhanded it back in the net. So that was
perfect.
I know it was typical my goal in front of the net, I guess.
That's awesome. No, that's super cool. Before we run out of time, I totally want to talk about what you're doing now, because I think it's really interesting and cool. I don't know if the title's right, but is it a skills consultant? Is that what you would call yourself?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that start? Who contacted you, or did you contact them? And what did that look like at the beginning?
So, like I mentioned earlier, my son plays in the OHL, right? So CHL league. So obviously he was in Oshawa, which is 35 minutes away from my hometown, from Toronto, where we live. So I was there every game. So there is a bunch of scouts, GMs, and everything, So you see, like I see Brian Marchman there that I played with. You see Todd Harvey, so the alumni we played together. So you just start talking, and they introduce you to some other guys, stuff like that. But I always want to get back in hockey. I mean, that's the only thing I knew, obviously, right? Since I was 5. And then about after third year, so obviously when I retired in 2015, so I took 3 years off just to be with family and stuff like that, build a house. So I was really busy. And then after that, when you have more free time, so I joined the alumni at the time, so you meet different people. Anyway, so I see one of the Reed Mitchell. So he's like with Toronto Maple Leafs for us when I was even playing. You probably know who I'm talking about, no?
I don't know that name. I don't.
Reed Mitchell. So he's been probably 20 plus years in the Leafs. So he was, I can't remember who he was, but now he's like in a scouting something, like one of the not head scout, but you'll know his title if you look up anyway. So so I see him, so I sat down and say, hey, what's up? Like, kind of start talking. And I'm like, yeah, so is there any chance for me to somehow get involved, So he's like, yeah, sure. I'll let you know. And then nothing was happening, so I kind of whatever, like it's happened, it happened. If not, it's because you know how tough it to get into the NHL, right? Like with any it was anything, as a player or as a scout or as a something. But anyway, so I think 5 months after that, so I was already like trying to contact the Jets actually, because I talked to assistant general manager there. He's like, hey, I saw him at the game too. He's like, yeah, just call me in the summer, we'll figure something out, blah blah blah. And then Scott Perlin, which is a senior director for player development, was the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he came up to me, approached me at one of my son's games again, and it's right after the draft, because it was a prospect camp usually after the drafts happening. So he's like, hey, would you mind to come up and help me out, with the Russian players? I'm like, yeah, sure. So that's how it basically started. I went out for 4 days there, help Russians translate, obviously not concentrating only on Russians, but trying to help out other guys, like small little tips, so they like what they see. And then it was nothing again for like till August. And then in August, he called me back and said, hey, there is why don't you come up? And then, just small little interview with Lawrence, which is assistant GM.
Yeah.
So I did a little interview and get hired. So that's how it started. And now it started like basically everything started with Russians, helping Russians to on the ice understand more, and then off the ice kind of. And then it kind of became more and more and more for me, So I was spending times with the Marlies during their practices as a interpreter for Russians if they don't understand a little bit, but then, helping out, and then running skill drills at the end of the, like during the year. So it's cool. Yeah. I love what I'm doing now. So it's like I always want to be on the ice with the guys, and if I can help in any way, that's awesome. And then I remember first practice when they called me up for first practice to be on the practice, during the practice. I was so nervous. My adrenaline was like, like it's your first NHL game. Like when your adrenaline goes, and then that's exactly the feeling it was, when I stepped out into the Marlies practice first time. I was standing and guys like all looking at this high speed guys are like, I'm like, holy, like I was like ecstatic. It was awesome.
That's funny. Do you think the game is the game faster now?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Way faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff they can do now with the puck or amazing. Like it was not like 10 years ago, obviously.
Right. So what do you, and there's a learning curve there too. I mean, I'm sure, right? I mean, just like stepping in the NHL, like you said, you got to figure the game out and figure where you fit out. Like now teaching skills, like where do you, what skills do you bring in? How did you develop that? I mean, what are you trying to pass along to these guys?
So basically, I wouldn't say it's my role, but like I'm concentrating more down low game, like boards in the front of the net. That's what I've been, successful during my NHL career, So that's kind of working around that below the hash marks area, But obviously, I'm not only concentrating on that. So I think it's 9 or 10 of us. So there is a skating coach, there is a defenseman, there is a couple more skill guys, So there is a whole bunch of things. So it's a lot to learn. It's been only a year, obviously. So I'm feeling more comfortable with every day that I was on the ice before the pandemic started, obviously, right? And then,
right.
But the fun part is, like when you work with the guys or particular guys for like how to redirecting puck, where to stand in front of the net, how to arrive there, what timing, like, or how, or what to do with the defenseman in front of you, and actually see it in the game, and it worked for the guys, it works for the guys, and they scoring goals that we just worked like 2 days ago, on this particular drill. It was good feeling actually. And then I always go into the dressing room and like, hey, like Mats used to say about his backhand, make sure he everybody knows, you see my backhand. So I always say, remember the drill we did?
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
That's cool. So is that mostly with the Marlies then? Or are you ever with the Leafs?
I did a few skates with the Leafs, but I was more like just a learning curve for me. So I ran maybe 1 or 2 skill practices, just again, same thing around the net and stuff like that. But I would say about 90% to 85% I'm Marlies, because like I said, I want to learn first, and then if Leafs need something help or something like that, then obviously I'm ready to. I'm right there, right? I'm 20 minutes away from them.
Right. What
if they need extra body, like a coach or something like that, or so.
Right. As far as the new players that are coming up, you said, I mean, they're fast and they're skilled. Just in general, if there is a general thing that you see that these guys need help with, what is it? These young players coming up.
Well, the main goal, like just to how to adapt to the next level, like you play a junior career, that's different. You step into the different shoes now. You're stepping into the men's shoes, so that adaptation period. So on ice, pretty much everybody at these days can do anything, like skating or skill sets. Everybody like way better than we were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It just the how to adapt. So the sooner you adapt, and that's what we help to accomplish with the guys. As soon as you to that men's hockey, and how to be a pro now, right? It helps kids to grow faster as a player and contribute. It's good for the club as well, right? And contribute.
No, yeah, 100%. The physicality is interesting. I've talked to a few guys about that on this podcast because it's like it's a less physical game in general. And guys don't really get to test themselves, it seems like, unless you're in that big rivalry game during the regular season or if you get into the playoffs. Because that's when the physicality gets turned up again, kind of like the old days a little bit. You played a physical brand there being in front of the net. Is that anything that, that you're talking with these guys about how to compete in those areas? Yeah.
The guys who, like in front of the net, when I run my skills there or like in front of the net, that's the only, like basically I tell you have to be a goalie. Like you have to be a goal because you have to be in front of the net. You know how goalie likes doing small little shuffles when puck goes cross eyes, so they do the small little shuffles or try to see around the net like this around the player. So you have to be. I told him, I tell him always, pretend you're a goalie. So make sure you move as a goalie. With puck goes, make sure. So stuff like that. But
that's cool.
And physicality, I like when I played. If you stand, like if you go and battle against Chris Pronger, let's say, right? Like if you're a smaller guy, you're not going to win this battle by standing there. So what I used to like to do, I try to see when the puck goes back to the point, I don't want to be at the front of the net yet. When it arrives and guy or my defenseman ready to shoot, make sure I always have eye contact with him, right? I arrived just a second before he released the puck, because if you're 240 or 245 or 230, you arrive with the full force. I don't care who you are as a defenseman. You're not going to stop me because I'm arriving, I'm skating, you standing, right? The only thing you can do, you cross-check me, that's 2 minutes. So I used to always arrive just before my defenseman relieved the puck, instead of standing and battling for like 5 seconds, get body possession right on this guy.
Right.
So that was my kind of. I tried to pass it on to those kids too.
What is
and it worked. Like they noticed they work. It works.
Yeah. I've noticed that the game has changed as far as how they're teaching defensemen, because a lot of times defensemen are fronting the guy in that's in front of the net instead of being behind him. When we played, there was never a defenseman in front of us. It was always behind you, slashing your ankles or cross checking you in the back.
Exactly, yeah.
What is the theory behind that? Are they supposed to be better able to block the puck in your opinion? Like, why is the defenseman going in front?
Yeah, just like you said it. Yeah. So I in my opinion, yeah. So if you are a defenseman and you can stop that puck before it gets to your goalie or to this guy who you're battling in front, so you already have one guy or maybe even two behind you. So that's an odd man rush right away if you manage to move the puck right away after you blocked it or stopped it, right? Or intercept it before it gets to the front of the net. So that's I think in my opinion, that's a theory. So, and back to one of my last seasons, that's what coaches wants you to do. Like they kind of want you to battle as a defenseman before, but then if you can get in front of the opposite team forward, right, and try to stop or intercept or block it and move it to so that's how odd man rushes creates, right? Right away.
As a forward, my gosh, you must have loved to play with guys doing that. I mean, and even if a puck does get through, I mean there's no one between you and the goalie. That part to me is just crazy, right?
So that's
What was
why,
that?
yeah, when they start doing this, so I'm trying to, yeah, that's 100%. Then you're just you and a goalie and a puck, right? So, and that's when I played, and when I realized opposition teams start doing this. So I try to block. I try to block the goalie first with my big body, and then when puck comes in and defenseman try to get around you, all you have to do is just put your body like half a step towards him, so he's in the mid, like in no zone. So
Right.
like, he's not in front of me, he's just behind me, but he cannot do nothing. So that's it's not a science, obviously, but you have to, like, as a young guy, they don't know that, right? So you have to kind of show them a couple of clips, find a couple of clips here and there. So it's a good, yeah. And when it became into the game and they start using this, that's not a relief, but it's a good feeling. You know what I mean? Like, you accomplish something with this guy, and it's good.
No, that's so fun. And it's so great that you're giving back. I mean, I really enjoy that aspect. And when even like these interviews, right? I view these interviews as giving back to these young guys that are coming up, to have a resource to see what it is that Nik went through to get here, what the little tricks that you learned along the way, whether it be, in the dressing room or on the ice that allowed you to be the player that you were. Because anytime we can shorten time frames, for people, like help figure it out for them. Yeah, I mean, it makes you feel good as a guy, and you're helping someone else, helping someone else in their career, which is a good thing. So that's cool that you're involved, and I'm sure you're really involved with your son as well. And is the younger guy coming up with being a hockey player too?
Oh yeah, he finished 3 years already of playing. Yeah, so he plays a year up. He's only 7 years old, but he's like between my oldest and the youngest. So my youngest is like just a bully. Like, he's like, oh my god, like I gotta settle him down before the games. He's like hitting guys, and like he hate to lose. So if he's losing, like, you better watch out the opposition team. So he'll throw a hit or two. Which
Isn't that so fun? Isn't that so fun to watch your own kids coming up through it and doing it now? It's
no, it is fun, obviously.
Yeah, that's been a really interesting thing for me, because I kind of left the game for a little bit, just doing corporate business stuff, and then had the kids, and then they started to like hockey. So I mean, where do I end up now? Is at the hockey rinks, which is getting me back in the game, which I'm super grateful for and thankful for, because like you said, it's really all I ever knew, and it's sort of a comfortable homey place to come back to, and now to see the next generation go through it and have that same passion and that same drive, and want to succeed. It's pretty fun to be that as a dad now. But
absolutely.
Did you have a chance to coach them at all? Just on a side, did you ever coach?
So, well, I'm helping out to the coaches. Mostly, I just open up the bench, open up bench, let the guys. So with oldest guy, I always coach during the spring, because spring hockey, because I used to play when my oldest growing up. So I wish I spent more time with him. And I wish I knew what I was doing, and I was provide him with more skating coaches or everything, So I didn't know anything back then. I didn't even know how to sign him to hockey. Imagine that. So my buddy from school, he goes, "Hey, why don't you son play hockey?" I'm like, "I have no idea where to go." He's like, "Yeah, here, just fill out online form. There's a rink 5 minutes from our house." I'm like, "Yeah, I know there is a rink, but what do you do?" So, and that's how I get involved in the hockey for my oldest son. And then obviously I've been traveling and skiing and playing, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. But with the little guy, so you have everything now, like from shooting pads, from extra skating coaches, this and that, and like crazy, right? So
little different than the leather skates you had growing up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember the name of those skates?
No, I'll look it up when we're off for sure. I'll look them up.
They were red and red toe and red tongue, and then everything else is like a brownish. So it was like,
that's awesome.
I'll send you a picture if I'll find it. If I'll find it, I'll send you a picture. Oh my god.
Well, you've been so great, Nik. I'm gonna let you go. Thanks so much for the time. What a cool conversation. I know everyone in the group here is gonna love it, and everyone on the podcast. There's a lot of good stuff there, and my gosh, like this playing in Toronto is such a unique experience unto itself, and for you to be a 10th overall pick there and to go climb your way kind of to the top of the mountain almost in that city is pretty cool. And now you're back there working with them. That's awesome. I'm happy for you with that. And yeah, man, like we'll keep in touch for sure. I'll let you know when this thing goes, but I do appreciate your time and thanks for being here.
Anytime.
So thank you for joining us today, listeners. Nik, if you're listening to this, thank you so much again for taking your time. to do this. I know as a father and as a man involved with an NHL team that's getting back to doing what they do. I know that your time is precious, and for Nik to share all of his experiences with us, walking us right back to his days as a kid in Kazakhstan, and all those crazy stories about coming over to North America and then becoming an NHL player, long-standing NHL player that he was. So many nuggets there, so many great takeaways, and really humanizes the hockey player, which I love talking about. I mean, I love those conversations, being 20, 19, 21 years old, being booed when you touch the puck, having to deal with that on a personal level, and yet still trying to perform in the results-based game of the NHL is beyond trying and is beyond difficult and is very, very exposing and a very vulnerable place to be. We talked about Nik having kind of a bubble there with his Russian teammates and not knowing the English language and not really being surrounded by what's happening in the media. But he said he knew. He knew so well that, he was hiding his number from Pat Quinn's because he didn't want to be called out for the shootout. And, so the stories like that I think are really powerful to hear that, we all go through these things. And I know you guys listening right now maybe can't experience what it feels like to be booed by 19,000 people when you're 20 years old, but we all have things that we're struggling in, or things that aren't going our way right now, and maybe we've lost our confidence. And just remember that, we come out the other end. If we need some help, we can ask for it. If we persevere through it, it's going to work out. Don't quit. Always, always, always keep your head up and keep looking for answers. And I think Nik's story was really wild. I mean, he was so brave and so courageous on so many levels, and to have the NHL career that he did, and now a Canadian citizen, and having kids grow up in Canada and being hockey players themselves, it was really cool to spend that time and to hear Nik's story. So thank you so much again for being here. Please share the episode. Please like and subscribe. All those great things that help promote the podcast. That would be much appreciated by me and much appreciated by those who will be exposed to the podcast, because I know we're talking about some really good things here, and it means a lot to a lot of people out there. So please do your part, and until next time, play hard. Keep your head up.